In the heart of the Wild West, a small town named Prosperity thrived like no other. Vibrant storefronts lined the dusty streets, their bright colors beckoning travelers and locals alike. Laughter and music filled the saloons, where friends gathered to share stories over mugs of frothy root beer. Children played in the sun-drenched square, their joyous shouts mixing with the lively chatter of bustling merchants selling everything from handmade goods to fresh produce. Prosperity was built on dreams and hard work. The banker, old Mr. Dawson, stood at the center of this thriving community like a mighty oak tree. People trusted him with their hopes for a better life. Loans flowed like water as he fueled businesses daring enough to take risks. Each loan was seen as a bridge to success, the kind that could bring families together and elevate lives. The town grew rapidly. New buildings popped up almost overnight. Gleaming horses pulled carts laden with goods, while townsfolk hustled to make their mark in this promising frontier. Festivals lit up the town each month, celebrating accomplishments and bolstering community bonds. Yet beneath this cheerful surface lay hidden worries. Loans piled higher and higher, with payments looming on the horizon. Most residents dared not think too far ahead, blinded by ambition and excitement. Little did they know that the very dreams driving them would soon turn into shadows as dark as storm clouds brewing overhead. Old Mr. Dawson, the town's banker, was a man of great influence and charm. With his twinkling blue eyes and a warm smile, he made everyone feel like they could achieve their dreams. He sat behind a polished oak desk in his small, bustling bank, where eager townsfolk lined up daily, ready to ask for loans that could change their lives forever. The allure of quick money danced in the air as old Mr. Dawson presented his offers with confidence. "Take this loan," he would say, gesturing enthusiastically, "and watch your dreams take flight. A new store, a bigger farm, whatever you desire is just a signature away." The townspeople were enchanted by the idea of instant success and often found it hard to resist his persuasive words. As more people took loans to expand their businesses or buy new homes, Prosperity seemed to thrive even more. New storefronts popped up like wildflowers every spring. However, with each loan came the shadow of repayment. Many residents didn't fully understand the weight of the interest that would accumulate over time. Old Mr. Dawson rarely spoke of the complexities. He focused instead on the immediate happiness the money brought. Gradually, a web of debts began to form, binding the townsfolk in their pursuit of prosperity. Unbeknownst to them, the very loans that filled their lives with hope were quietly sowing seeds for future despair. While old Mr. Dawson basked in his role as the town's hero, beneath it all simmered an unsteady foundation ready to crumble. As the sun rose higher over Prosperity, cracks began to appear in the town's seemingly solid foundation. Behind the cheerful smiles and bustling streets, many residents were quietly grappling with the weight of their debts. Small signs of trouble emerged, often dismissed or brushed aside by those too optimistic to see the looming storm. In the bakery, Mrs. Jenkins struggled to keep her shelves stocked. Once a favorite stop for fresh pies and warm bread, her shop saw fewer customers each week. "I'll bounce back," she assured herself, but deep down, she worried about her unpaid bills piling up like flour sacks in the back room. Meanwhile, young Tom Collins, who had taken a loan to expand his farm, found himself unable to pay for seeds and equipment. He watched helplessly as his once thriving crops began to wilt under the harsh sun. In conversations with neighbors, he maintained a brave face, convinced that fortune would soon smile upon him again. Even at old Mr. Dawson's bank, whispers of concern began to circulate. Some townsfolk noticed that fewer new businesses were opening. Instead, shops started closing their doors for good. Yet many turned a blind eye to these signs and clung tightly to their hopes and dreams. The allure of quick money had blinded them to reality, leaving them unaware that financial stability was slipping through their fingers. As they ignored these early warnings of instability, the town remained blissfully unaware that their bright future was on shaky ground. The clock struck noon, its chime echoing through the streets of Prosperity, signaling a moment that would change everything. Old Mr. Dawson stood at his bank's entrance, his expression serious as he prepared to confront the reality that had been brewing beneath the town's surface. Today was the day he would call in the debts, a decision that weighed heavily on his heart. As townsfolk bustled about, unaware of what was coming, a thick tension hung in the air. The baker's door creaked open as Mrs. Jenkins stepped outside, wiping her hands on her apron and glancing at the bank with unease. She had heard rumors that Mr. Dawson was growing impatient with unpaid loans, but she never imagined today would be the day. Across the street, Tom Collins looked up from his wilted crops as he passed by the bank. He felt a knot form in his stomach. He had hoped for one more season to turn things around. Yet as he watched neighbors enter and exit with worried expressions, he feared that hope was slipping away. Inside the bank, old Mr. Dawson took a deep breath and cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady but firm, "it is time to settle your accounts." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. As the townsfolk turned to each other in confusion and fear, it became clear that this noon hour marked not just a financial reckoning, but also the beginning of an unforeseen storm that would soon engulf prosperity in chaos. As old Mr. Dawson's words hung heavily in the air, an unexpected sound erupted from behind him. A loud rumble, followed by a joyous splash. The grand fountain outside the bank seemed to awaken with a life of its own. Suddenly, copper coins began to burst up and out of the fountain, showering the streets with a dazzling rain of glimmering currency. At first, the townsfolk were mesmerized, their eyes growing wide as laughter broke through the tension. Children squealed in delight as they watched the coins tumble and dance like shiny raindrops. "Look at all that money!" shouted one excited little girl, her hands reaching out to catch the golden bounty. But as adults rushed towards the fountain to collect what they could, an undercurrent of panic quickly spread among them. The cheerful laughter faded into frantic shouts as they realized the spectacle was more than just a freak occurrence. With each squirt of coins from the fountain, it felt as if old Mr. Dawson's decision to call in debts had manifested in this explosive eruption. "The debts! He's calling our debts!" someone cried, panic dawning in their eyes as they started to connect the dots. What began as a moment of excitement transformed into chaos as confusion erupted among friends who were now adversaries in their scramble for coins. The vibrant town had turned into a battlefield where debts became tangible and their hopes scattered like the coins in the air. All around them, it felt like prosperity was slipping through their fingers faster than they could grasp it, leaving a sense of foreboding amid what was supposed to be a celebration. Amid the glittering shower of coins, the streets of prosperity transformed into a scene of utter chaos. Initially, laughter erupted as children dashed toward the fountain, their small hands reaching up to catch the tumbling coins. "Look at all the money!" they shouted with glee, their innocent joy cutting through the tension that had just moments before gripped the town. However, panic soon rippled through the crowd of adults, who began to scramble for coins with desperate urgency. Mrs. Jenkins darted forward, her heart racing as she scooped handfuls of copper into her apron. "This might help pay off my debts," she thought, glancing nervously back at her empty bakery. On the other side of the street, Tom Collins stood frozen in place, his mind racing. He watched neighbors he once trusted push past each other in a frenzy to collect what they could. In that moment, it became clear to him that this chaotic scene was not just a fun spectacle. It was a painful reminder of their struggles and unpaid loans. "Why are we fighting over coins when we owe so much?" he muttered under his breath, feeling a wave of despair wash over him. Others around him were coming to similar realizations, their excitement replaced by dread as they recognized that every coin collected would not erase their debts, but only delay the inevitable. The townspeople's faces shifted from delight to horror as they understood that beneath this unexpected fortune lay a deeper crisis. The festival of coins had turned into a stark reflection of their financial ruin, an illusion of wealth that now threatened to drown them in panic and regret. In the days following the fountain's eruption, the impact on the residents of prosperity became profoundly clear. Mrs. Jenkins returned to her bakery, clutching her handful of coins like a lifeline. But as she glanced around her empty shop, she felt more despondent than triumphant. The coins might help her pay a few bills, but they wouldn't save her bakery from the loyal customers who had stopped coming. Meanwhile, Tom Collins gathered with fellow farmers who also faced mounting debts. They found themselves sharing more than just their struggles over crops. They exchanged glances filled with fear and doubt. "We thought a loan would bring us prosperity," he said quietly to his neighbor. "Now all we've got is this mess." Their friendship, once rooted in shared dreams of success, began to fray as financial stress took its toll. On the other side of town, families huddled together in their homes, discussing the chaotic events. Parents tried to comfort their children, who couldn't understand why what began as an exciting time had turned into worry over money. Laughter faded from the air as whispers of overdue payments crept into conversations. As residents continued to scoop coins from their pockets in what felt like a losing battle against debt, tensions mounted within friendships and families alike. The rush for coins highlighted not only the fierce competition for scraps, but also the eroding trust that once bound them together. Prosperity was now a town divided, caught in a cycle of desperation that threatened to smother the ties that had united them for so long. As the dust settled after the chaos of the fountain, the long-term consequences of unpaid debts became painfully evident throughout Prosperity. Businesses that had once thrived now faced permanent closures, as loyal customers continued to vanish amidst the financial turmoil. The bakery that had filled the air with delightful scents was now a hollow shell, its doors barred and its windows dusty, a haunting reminder of better days. In homes across town, families struggled not just with bills but also with a growing sense of distrust. Neighbors who had once shared meals and laughter began avoiding one another, afraid to discuss their worsening situations. Friendships fractured under the weight of unspoken worries. Whispers of unpaid loans and broken promises echoed in hushed conversations. The community's spirit, once vibrant and united, had been replaced with suspicion. People hesitated to lend a helping hand, fearing they might be left empty-handed themselves. The bonds that had woven Prosperity together began to fray as everyone became focused on their own survival. As businesses folded and families turned inward, the local economy crumbled. The very fabric of Prosperity's community started to unravel. Community gatherings dwindled, festivals were canceled, and laughter faded into silence. It was a stark transformation. What had once been a thriving town filled with hope now lay barren under the weight of financial despair. The consequences of debt reached far beyond monetary loss. They extinguished trust and broke the connections that had defined their lives, leaving behind a mere shadow of what once was. As the dust settled over the once bustling town of Prosperity, reflections on the crisis began to emerge. The painful lessons learned from the financial collapse became clear to everyone, emphasizing the importance of financial responsibility and the need for a supportive community. The townsfolk came to realize that quick loans, while enticing, often came with hidden dangers that could lead to devastating consequences. In the wake of this upheaval, some residents started to gather in small groups to discuss their experiences. They shared stories of mistakes made and lessons learned, fostering a renewed commitment to each other. "We must be more mindful," urged Mrs. Jenkins at one such meeting, her voice steady despite her earlier despair. "Living beyond our means only puts us at risk." Slowly, the conversations shifted toward rebuilding trust and collaboration. Farmers like Tom Collins reached out to one another to share resources and knowledge, understanding that they were stronger together than apart. Community members began organizing workshops focused on budgeting and responsible borrowing, creating a sense of renewed hope. Through these efforts, Prosperity was beginning to forge a new identity, one built on resilience rather than reckless ambition. The scars of the past remained visible, but they served as reminders of what could happen when ambition overshadowed caution. The townspeople learned that true prosperity lies not just in financial gain but in cultivating relationships and supporting one another through thick and thin. As they began to heal, the spirit of community slowly rekindled, promising a brighter future grounded in wisdom and unity. As the townsfolk of Prosperity began to emerge from the shadow of their recent crisis, a shared determination to rebuild and transform their community took hold. Under the leadership of residents like Mrs. Jenkins and Tom Collins, plans were set into motion for a series of town meetings aimed at fostering open dialogue about financial practices and community support. Together, they envisioned a stronger future built on lessons learned from their painful past. We must create a system that prioritizes financial education, Mrs. Jenkins proposed during one meeting, her voice filled with resolve. Let's establish workshops to teach budgeting skills and responsible borrowing. The room buzzed with agreement as others chimed in with ideas for local initiatives that would promote transparency and cooperation. Additionally, the townspeople decided to form a cooperative where families could pool resources and offer each other support during hard times. This cooperative model not only aimed to ease financial pressure but also sought to strengthen the bonds among neighbors, so that no one would feel isolated again. As they worked together, the spirit of prosperity began to rekindle. Community gatherings returned, now infused with purpose and camaraderie. The laughter that once echoed through the streets slowly resurfaced, blending with newfound discussions about wise investments and shared aspirations. With each step toward recovery, the residents understood that true prosperity was not merely measured in coins or material success, but rather in the strength of their relationships and the care they showed one another. As they rebuilt their town together, it became clear that they were not just recovering from a disaster. They were cultivating a thriving community grounded in wisdom, resilience, and unity for generations to come.